Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on a beautiful Monday evening. What a weekend. A little bit warmer than initially forecast. I was the recipient of free tickets to the New England Nationals at Epping, New Hampshire for Friday qualifying, and it was predicted the Friday night session, the second session, Friday night was going to be fantastic, and it was. Just the weather and the rain the day before might have affected the track a little bit, so it was spectacular, but not exactly the absolute mine shaft record-setting conditions that the track deserves. It's had the NHRA national event for over a decade, and it's hard this time of year anyway to get a decent weather day. The track is all concrete, one of only a few in the country, and it's only 90 feet above sea level. It has the makings to be, it's historic in its own right, but it was a great weekend, sold out Saturday and Sunday apparently, and just a good weekend. I got to see lots of friends and all the professionals, which I love about drag racing. They walk among you. It's not like you go to a NASCAR race, you can look at them through a window. You can't just roam through the pits and watch them work on the car and talk to them, because they're just regular people. My son went with me. He's only 13, his first big race. He went to the drag races once before, but want to expose him to that. He can make up his own mind whether he likes it or not. But for instance, it's Friday evening, just before the second session, you were walking past the row of portable toilets, and there's Tony Schumacher standing there. It's hard to say, hey, look at that guy right there. He's the winningest top fuel driver ever, or is he just a guy waiting for the porta potty? So anyway, I've been working on the Race 55 always, every day in my mind anyway, but quick refresh, if you don't remember, I haven't put a dedicated playlist together for it yet, but I need to. Since I've got it a year and a half ago, I've only dabbled here and there. I need to actually work on it for real. But I like to work in areas and collect the parts I need. That's my MO. I would love to just do nothing but work on it, or any of my projects, but that's not reality. So I use the time I can to collect parts for all of them, and it's really just a big mess, but I'm having fun. So quick refresh, like I started, the car was built between 1992 and 1995, from what I understand, with the intent of being the fastest street car in America, or anywhere probably. It never got finished. And now the responsibility lies on me. It's sat in a warehouse forever after the original owner passed away. It's got quite a story. It was built to have a 6-second cert, SFI certification on the chassis, and that's what I want to finish it to. I have the proper books. Again, things have changed a little bit since 1992, but there's not a whole lot of things necessarily wrong, but I have some obstacles to overcome. One of the first ones I tackled when I got it is, I don't know if you can see these, but picture yourself sitting in the driver's seat over here. This cross member right here, these 3 pieces, it could be 1 piece, but it's allowed to be 3 pieces. It can also bolt in the center. So the first thing I did after I got my new JMR bender is bend up one of the most difficult pieces you can. I think I did a pretty good job, by the way. And I bought the correct chrome moly flanges with the 3/8 bolts, shouldered bolts and everything. And with the Turbo 400 with a torque converter, this fits right in there. You're allowed a 3-inch eyebrow. I guess an eyebrow goes that way, but in my case it has to hang down, but you're allowed a 3-inch offset. This is less than 3 inches. It cleared the torque converter, it bolted right in. Everything was fine with this cross member, which is bars number, the SFI spec numbers, all the bars. In this case, it's 6A, B, and C, 6C being in the middle. So this is my 6C bar. And make sure I'm accurate on that. Yeah, 6C is in the middle. And I had the problem solved. This bolts right in, piece of cake. Nice welding too, by the way, if I do say so myself. So what's the problem? Well, like a genius, I wanted to put a Lenco transmission, which is how the car was built. Now, the flanges, or the stub of tubing sticking off the chassis was just left there. I cut it off square and put on the matching flange to this. I don't know what the plan was back then, because I don't think the spec has changed. I see this a lot. I study every chassis I see, and a lot of times, this bar, the 6C bar, is not correct by the book. I see that a lot. Because when it runs right under the engine, it's a pain in the butt, or under the transmission. So they allow you to set the middle of it, the 6C bar, back 16 inches if you want to. That's what this page is all about. You're allowed to set it back 16 inches, which allows you to use this as a transmission cross member on the back of the transmission. But if you do that, you need to put more supports in the floor of 1 5/8. I mean, it's pretty substantial. Triangulation has to happen. So, also, I keep grabbing the same picture, you can see these bars on the side, which would be under the passenger and driver's floor. They're very specific about how those have to go. I know from looking at my car the way it's currently built, the passenger side floor diagonal is correct. It's 1.25 inches, and it's the correct length. Everything is fine on that side, and I have room to put the diagonal that would allow me to set this back under the transmission. The driver's side, for whatever reason, the diagonal is only 1.1 inches. The piece under the seat that has to interrupt it is 1.25 inches like it's supposed to be. Why that bar is only 1.1 inches? I don't know, but that's the things when you go to get your chassis inspected that are going to ruin your day. I've had it happen once before, and I vow to never have it happen again. I can read the book and try to understand it. A lot of times you got to interpret it to the point I've called the tech director one time already, asking a question about, the exact meaning, and you got to hope that you're not entering a gray area where it's going to bite you. Anyway, so I want to put the Lenco in it. I don't know what the original plan was to do this correctly. So I attempted the other day. I was ordering a bunch of tubing and brackets and stuff. And this one, I got more brackets like this so I can make a second one. And this has a full 3-inch eyebrow. And it is so close to fitting under the bell housing, but it won't quite fit the chassis. So that is unresolved, but I know I have to cut the driver's side floor supports out anyway, and it has a master cylinder mounted between my legs, backwards on the floor, so the pedal push rod, pushes back towards me and applies the master cylinder. I don't like how low the master cylinder is. I prefer to put the master cylinder out in front of me down low, and this all tied into the diagonals that I'm talking about. So long story short, I need to cut all that out of there, redo my side. I can put the correct diagonals in to put this back where it goes, and I want to place it so it fits both the Turbo 400 and the Lenco. I can solve the problem. And it's all things that needed to be fixed anyway, so. And I will keep this one. I already have, this represents more than $100 and some time. But this one was close to my 10.5-inch converter. So if I ever had a bolt together converter, I already wondered if this was going to clear it. No question this one will. So that's that. Moving on. This is show and tell tonight. I dragged in this Lakewood bell housing from the shed because it's made for a 62 to 67, I guess, Chevy 2, and the clutch fork comes out about 7 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock, which is normal, because I'm trying to operate this by pulling on it with my clutch shaft, and it lines up a lot better this way. I can make this work if I have to. I was hoping this was going to be the answer to my problems. However, the same bar I just showed you comes right past here. It'll clear up at 9 o'clock, but it's not going to clear at 7 o'clock, so this beautiful old Bellhausen can go back in the shed till someday I get a really cool manual transmission Chevy 2 and use it. This isn't all failure, this video. It's not failure, it's all how you solve the problems that come along. When I bought the Lenco, I bought it from a Mopar guy, and it came with a brand new bearing retainer in the size meant for a Chrysler. Same with the input shaft. I have not cut the input shaft down yet, but I will, because fortunately all the Mopar dimensions are bigger than GM. So I have a brand new GM throw-up bearing collar. This is where your throw-up bearing rides. This would ride right here inside the Bellhausen, actuated by the fork. So there was plenty of real estate to cut this OD down. So now my bearing retainer fits perfect. That was a fun little project. The OD here, the dark spot is the recess that fits into the transmission. With a little bit of measuring, I realized that I needed to turn what you see as the silver part now down to the same dimension, and I was able to do it without even scratching the gold or the dark part. And as it works out, it just does not interfere with the bolt holes that hold it on. That all worked out pretty good. That was a win. So I could just buy a GM one, but I have the Mopar one with no use for it. Same with the input shaft, other than being 18 spline. I need to cut this down to GM. I need to cut the length down, but this end is all perfect. So just trying to use what I have. I still have to cut down the length of this. You can see when this is about where it's supposed to be, how much I got to cut off, but if I'm cutting stuff off, it's still usable. These pieces here, it comes with the throw-up bearing. Put that on there because it wants to leak grease. Comes with a brand new fork, the throw-up bearing, a new pivot. It clips into here. The little bolts that would hold the tin shield on the front of a stock Bellhausen, and a boot for the fork for a stock Bellhausen. These little kits are available. I bought these on eBay. I got a deal on them. I ended up buying 5 of them. Because the more you buy, the cheaper they're at. $18. $18 for all this junk. I just needed some brand new stuff for mock-up. And when I got it, it's not a bad looking fork. Until this is a piece I cut off the fork I put in the Nova, because I made it like I need to do with this one to take a clevis. In this case, I'm going to use rod ends, but I think I use rod ends on the Nova too now I think about it. But look at how much beefier this American-made one is in the cross section this way. I mean, look at how much you can see the difference. Now this will work just fine, but this definitely is heavy duty. So that was an interesting side-by-side comparison. I was just looking for a piece of steel this afternoon that might accept the rod end when I realized how much thinner that one was. So, but as far as just having pieces for mock-up, and this stuff I'll save for another day. I don't even know if I'd run the throat bearing. It feels fine, but it's a shorter version. All I had was a long one anyway, so now I have a short and a long, or 5 shorts and a long. So that was positive. The beautiful October day that I rescued the Race 55 from a warehouse in the outskirts of Boston, I didn't know until I rolled it up on the trailer, because the pictures were not good that were posted in the ad. I didn't know until I rolled it up on the trailer that I had a basically $4,000 strange floater brake setup on the back of the rear end housing in the Race 55. when I brought it home, I contacted Strange and they told me this is the early floater setup. They now have a later setup. And they were able to sell me my missing parts to assemble completely the one in the car. But warned me that eventually parts might get scarce, or at least at the moment, I hope they at least restock parts, because this one's dated 2012, so it's much newer than the one in the Race 55 if that was early 90s. However, it popped up. Here's a complete early Strange floater. Everything except the actual weld-on spindles on the housing, which I believe you have to buy separate anyway. Complete. Shipped to my house for an embarrassingly small amount of money. You know, because the guy that owns this car was upgraded to carbon fiber brakes. And this stuff's just been sitting around. I have already bought new calipers for mine. You know, it's excellent for spare parts. It's also excellent for the fact that this can be 4 3/4 bolt pattern, 5 on 4 3/4, or 5 on 5. The Race 55 is currently 5 on 5. I have a set of 16-inch wheels that I want to have bead locked, and I'll run those 5 on 5 with that rear end housing. I also have some 15-inch slicks on some really nice wheels that I'd like to use, but they're Chevrolet bolt pattern 4 3/4, which these rotors are. You can change the position of the studs over, but it's not exactly that easy. It can be done, but if you were to do it multiple times, it would probably get old, and you wouldn't want eventually to have them falling out or anything. I would rather change the whole unit. So these are 5 on 4 3/4 already. So that's an option of what I could do with this stuff. If I want to swap over to the 15-inch Chevrolet wheels that I have and tires, I can. I also have contemplated how, and they started building 0 or no, a 1-inch offset rear wheels, so you can run a small tire with a big tire rear end and not have it look too goofy on the back. You know, there's a lot of that style racing going on. I think it'd be kind of cool. And even just for cruising, I mean, a 315 radial is probably a lot more street friendly than a 1736-16 tire. Actually, I bought 2 sets of 1734 5s already. You know, on speculation. 16-inch, so that has to be 16-inch stuff on my 5 on 5 wheels. And then, after this showed up today and I unpacked it all, and I got every last nut, bolt, everything that would have come in the kit. There's nothing missing. I have the spanner nut, everything's under here. All I'm missing is the weld-on piece on the housing. And of course, the old brain starts moving. Why not just build a slightly wider rear end, complete, 100%. I can have a different ratio in it, obviously. No big deal to change it. You know, you just pull the calipers out. You don't have to bleed the brakes. 4 bolts in the 4-link, 2 in the sway bar. Swap the, you know, hang the calipers and put them back on the other rear. And I could put it in small tire mode just like that. Which is, I like the idea of that. You know, I could build my own housing. I have housings to work with. That project is doable. Not super expensive. I've got the most expensive part. I thought about building a rear end anyway, but it seemed backwards to take a floater setup out and put in a traditional axle. When I say floater, the axle loads in through this little cap, and if you know how a big truck looks, or even a 3/4 ton and up truck, where all the weight of the vehicle floats on these bearings here, and this goes over the spindle of the axle. It's got adjusting nut for the bearings, and the axle can be completely missing and the vehicle still rolls around. So unlike a traditional axle where if you break the flange, the wheel and the rest of the axle is going to try to exit the car with dramatic results. So there's classes in drag racing way faster than mine probably, but that dictate you have to have a floater rear end. So It was a bonus when I found that I have one. I've been pretty giddy ever since, and now I'm looking at potentially building a second one for the same car, because that is how my brain works. And when I keep flashing this red thing, it's a bolt circle template. It's marked, 4.5, 4.75, 5, and bigger. How big does it go? 5.5. Wicked handy, semi-accurate. I mean, it's all of the wheel bolt pattern measuring devices are a little bit wonky. This one I trust pretty well. I've got the Chevrolet highlighted in black, and it's a quick reference whether it's slightly bigger or slightly smaller. That's the majority of the wheels you're going to find. It was, don't ask me where I got it, Amazon or eBay, $4 or $5, probably $15 now. Prices have gone up. So hey, thanks for watching. And I'll keep picking away at stuff in some kind of order when I can, along with all the other projects. Because that's the way I like it. Take care.